Hey there, fantastic person. Your viewership brings me genuine delight, and that little subscribe button could turn this delight into pure ecstasy. Time to get rolling. My name is Gordon, and I've always held the belief that stability is what protects a family from falling apart. That conviction didn't come from nowhere. It was shaped by what I lived through as a child. When I was 11, my father lost almost everything we owned to gambling. One night, a group of furious men came banging on our apartment door. My mother scrambled to gather whatever cash she could find to make them leave. After that, we spent nearly a month sleeping on fold-out cots in the basement of a church. My mother worked through the night at a local diner and picked up shifts at a grocery store during the day. She never once complained, never criticized my father, and never made me feel like a burden. She just pushed forward with quiet resolve. That image of her holding everything together with nothing but grit left a permanent mark on me. I made myself a promise back then. If I ever had a family of my own, I would make sure it was built on something unshakable. I'd ensure we were never exposed like that again. I'd create safety with my own hands. It was years later when I met Tina. She worked at the reception desk of a physical therapy clinic. I'd messed up my shoulder lifting heavy freight at the warehouse, and she was the first person I saw when I came hobbling in. Her voice was unforgettable, clever, but kind. She told me her dream was to become an interior designer, though for the moment she was juggling part-time classes while working to pay off her student loans. I told her about my job in logistics, how I'd started out unloading boxes and slowly worked my way into an office role doing scheduling. We exchanged stories about where we hoped to end up, trading modest goals for bigger visions. 2 years later, I asked her to marry me. We found a modest townhouse on the outskirts of the city. It wasn't extravagant, but it was strong and reliable, just what we needed. My career kept advancing, and eventually, I was promoted into management. Tina was my biggest supporter, lighting up with pride whenever I shared good news from work. We found a rhythm. Me putting in long hours, her keeping our home warm and welcoming. For a long while, I believed I had done it. I had built the life I once could only imagine, steady, safe, and predictable. A life where no one had to question whether they'd have a roof over their head the next day. Our son, Evan, arrived 3 years into our marriage. From then on, life followed a dependable routine. I left early each morning, but I made it a point to be home most evenings for dinner. Even if it was just leftovers or takeout, we always shared the meal together. Afterward, I'd help wash the dishes or bathe Evan. My work days were long and demanding, but I told myself it was worth it. Every late night at the office felt like another layer of protection for my family. Around that time, Tina began picking up freelance work. A neighbor asked her to help with paint colors during a renovation. A former co-worker needed guidance decorating a nursery. She called it her practice, a stepping stone toward officially becoming a designer. She also mentioned spending some afternoons volunteering at the local arts center, helping plan layouts for community events. Not long after that, a car was stolen from a driveway just a few houses down. Then someone else's garage got broken into. At the next homeowners association meeting, security became the main topic. Alarm systems, motion detectors, surveillance cameras. Even our insurance company sent out a pamphlet recommending verified home security systems to reduce premiums. That weekend, I decided it was time to take action. I ordered a basic security setup online, a video doorbell and 2 small indoor cameras, one placed in the kitchen, the other pointed down the hallway toward our living room. My goal was clear: create a sense of safety with as little disruption as possible. I installed everything while Tina and Evan were away visiting her sister for the day. When they came back, the new doorbell camera was obvious, so I brought it up right away. The indoor cameras, though, were much more discreet, tucked near vents and on bookshelves, barely noticeable. I didn't give them much thought after that. My mind had already shifted back to the deadlines I was facing at work that Monday. I figured I'd explain the whole setup later, but that moment never arrived. I simply moved on, satisfied that I'd completed another task around the house. At the time, I had no idea those cameras would eventually tear apart everything I thought I knew about my marriage. It all began with a casual comment from Evan's preschool teacher. I was picking him up one afternoon when she gently said, "He's been the last one waiting more often these days. He doesn't seem to mind, but I thought you should know." I nodded, thanked her, and said I appreciated her letting me know. On the drive home, Evan chimed in. "Mommy's always late on Thursdays. Miss Jenna gives me extra crackers." He wasn't complaining, just stating a fact. But something about that comment stayed with me. While we were having dinner, I brought it up lightly, asked Tina if everything was okay on Thursdays. Her teacher had mentioned she was slipping behind. She didn't really look at me, just kept her eyes on the plate. "It's just consultations," she said casually. "People want me to check out their homes later in the day. Traffic is brutal coming back." She gave me a quick smile and changed the topic, asking how my day had gone. From that night on, though, I started noticing subtle changes. She began keeping her phone face down after meals. When it buzzed, she'd flip it over quickly and mention it was just chatter from her arts center group. Saturday mornings, she looked exhausted. Not from work exactly, but from something I couldn't quite name. A few months later, I got an alert from our home security app, storage space running low, review or lose footage. I opened my laptop out of idle curiosity, not expecting to find anything unusual. Most of the recordings were exactly what you'd expect. Tina cooking, Evan dragging his toys through the living room. Just regular, daily stuff. But then, something odd popped up. A white Tesla parked outside. Not just once, several times. Each appearance landed on a Thursday, always sometime between 1 and 4 in the afternoon. The doorbell camera had picked up Tina greeting someone. A man's voice responded, "You made it. Come in." I sat back and replayed it. Same car, same voice, week after week. At first I thought, client maybe? But Tina had never mentioned anyone who drove a Tesla. That night I asked about her work at the Arts Center. She hesitated, just for a beat. "They've been keeping me pretty busy," she said. It sounded rehearsed, like something she'd practiced ahead of time. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I just saved the recordings and closed the laptop. My doubt had shifted into quiet resolve. Once you notice a fracture, it's hard to stop looking. I started digging, carefully. The joint account showed small cash withdrawals, recurring, always on Thursdays. Then I found a receipt from a cafe far across town, not even close to the Arts Center. Things were beginning to connect. The next week I told Tina I might be out late. Supplier meeting, maybe even an overnight. She just nodded, barely engaged. "All right, I've got things covered here." That was the opportunity I needed. I stayed nearby. The day before, I'd bought a hidden camera disguised as a digital clock and placed it on a shelf in the living room. I didn't bother with the bedroom. If anything happened, it would begin where it couldn't be ignored. That Thursday, after dropping Evan at school, I left the neighborhood, then circled back and parked a few streets away. At exactly 1 o'clock, the white Tesla arrived. The man who stepped out, Andrew, as I'd later learn, was in his mid-30s, clean-cut, confident, dressed like he wasn't there to talk business. Tina opened the door before he even knocked. "You're early," she said with a grin. He laughed softly and leaned in close. They knew each other, intimately. On my phone, I switched to the nanny cam feed. They walked into the living room like they'd done it a dozen times. Her fingers touched his arm. His hand rested on her waist. This wasn't new. This wasn't casual. But then something worse hit me. Evan's bedroom door was closed. I checked the hallway cam. His tablet was propped up, volume low. He was inside, alone. Not playing outside, not in the living room. He'd been told to stay put, so Tina could be alone with Andrew. I logged every second. Time-stamped the videos, saved them to an encrypted drive. That evening at dinner, Tina asked how the meeting went. "Went well," I said. calm, composed. She had no idea I already knew. By Monday, I was sitting across from Amelia Reyes, a family lawyer a colleague had recommended. I handed her a flash drive. She plugged it in and reviewed the footage silently. Her expression didn't change. 10 minutes passed before she closed the laptop. "This is solid," she said. "You've got consistent evidence of infidelity and your son being deliberately shut out. That's significant." I nodded once. "I don't want this to become a spectacle," I said. "No drama, no shouting matches. My priority is Evan. He comes first." Amelia leaned back in her chair, her voice steady and composed. "It's time to get strategic. Start keeping a record of everything. Line up dependable childcare so you're covered if custody shifts. Move funds into an account under your name. Stay within legal bounds. And don't give her any reason to suspect." That night, I quietly opened a new bank account, registered solely to me. I didn't move much, just enough to handle attorney fees and potential emergencies. I also reached out to Luis, a trustworthy friend who'd looked after Evan before. "Would you be able to help with pickups if something comes up?" I asked. "Anytime. Just say when," he answered instantly. At work, I arranged a meeting with HR. I requested a modified schedule, citing vague family obligations. I didn't elaborate, and they didn't press. They agreed to fixed hours, giving me more time in the evenings with Evan. At home, I let everything carry on like normal. Tina still had her Thursday sessions, still smiled across the dinner table as though nothing had changed. She didn't notice I'd begun coming home earlier. She didn't see the private file I kept or realize I was comparing her explanations to the footage from our security system. Each Thursday, the Tesla showed up again. The evidence piled up. I remained calm, civil, meticulous. Once you've faced the truth, keeping up appearances becomes second nature. I wasn't in denial. I was aligning the pieces. The divorce papers landed on a Tuesday morning. Evan was already at preschool, and I was at my desk when my phone lit up. "What the hell is this, Gordon?" Tina's voice shook, brittle with disbelief. "Divorce papers," I replied, my tone controlled. "You're blindsiding me? After everything I've done for this family?" I kept my voice even. "You've been meeting with Andrew Clark in our home every Thursday, 1 to 4. I have it all on camera." She went quiet, then laughed weakly. "He's a client. I was helping him design a studio." "Clients don't touch you like that in our living room," I said, flat. "Want to try again?" Her voice dropped. "Things got complicated. I didn't plan for it to go that far." "But you were organized enough to funnel money from our joint account. I saw the cafe receipts, the ATM withdrawals, the business transfers." "That's not fair," she snapped. "You're always gone. Late nights, endless work. What did you expect me to do? Just vanish quietly into the background?" I let the silence hang before answering. "I expected honesty, that you'd still be a mother, that you wouldn't reduce our home to a hiding spot." She softened, almost pleading. "We can fix this. Go to counseling. Start fresh. Don't let one mistake destroy everything." I drew a breath. This isn't about us anymore. It's about Evan. He deserves a parent who puts him first, not one who locks him away to make room for someone else. Her voice cracked. "So that's it? You're cutting me out?" "No. The court will define your role. But as for pretending I don't know what's been happening, that ends now." I ended the call before she could reply. At mediation, Tina tried to hold it together, arms crossed, voice cool, but Amelia was relentless. "March 12th, she said, sliding a photo across the table. "Mrs. Carter confined her son to his bedroom while engaging in physical contact with Mr. Clark." Tina's lawyer cleared his throat. "We recognize a personal relationship existed, but—" Amelia cut in firmly. "This wasn't a lapse in judgment. It was a pattern. Every Thursday. Neglect, documented, shared funds diverted into Mr. Clark's business." She tapped another page. "Would you like us to go further?" The judge didn't need her to. By the second mediation session, the outcome was obvious. Tina's defenses, her loneliness, my long hours, her creative needs, fell apart under the weight of surveillance videos and bank statements. The ruling was clear. I received full custody of Evan. Tina's contact would be supervised until she completed therapy and parenting courses. Financially, the post-nup I'd insisted on years earlier shielded my income. She got her share of the joint assets, but nothing beyond that. After the session, Amelia extended her hand. Your restraint mattered. Judges notice which parent brings stability. Back home, I began rebuilding our world from the ground up. I reduced my hours, scaling back from the relentless grind of 60 each week to a more manageable 45. Lewis stepped in to cover the pickups, giving me space to adjust to the slower rhythm. Evenings settled into a gentle routine. Dinner by 6, bath by 7, stories wrapped up by 8. The house wasn't as lively as it once had been, but it never felt deserted. Evan adapted faster than I'd anticipated. One night, as I tucked him in and smoothed the blanket over him, he looked up and said, "You're around more now." Just 5 simple words, yet they pierced deeper than anything Tina had spoken during the custody hearing. As the days passed, the house stopped feeling like a layover between work shifts and started becoming a home, real, rooted, steady. Evan caught me off guard with how much he changed. He woke up in lighter moods, his laughter more frequent. He stopped questioning his mother's tardiness. One afternoon, his preschool teacher pulled me aside. "He seems more at ease these days," she said. "Whatever adjustments you've made, they're working." At first, Tina's visits were monitored by court order, stiff, strained interactions. Evan clung to me, unsure of what those moments would bring. But with time, the visits eased into something less brittle. Boundaries remained, but the tension thinned. She fulfilled all the court's requirements, and eventually, her time with Evan no longer needed supervision. Still limited, but more open. I never tore her down in front of Evan, but I didn't paint over the truth either. He deserved clarity. Nothing more, nothing less. After the final ruling, Andrew disappeared. He hadn't bargained for the responsibility, only the thrill. Once the gravity of the situation became real, he vanished, leaving Tina to face the fallout alone. In those early weeks after the settlement, the security cameras I'd once installed, and conveniently failed to mention during the divorce, were still rolling. One evening I stood in the kitchen, idly browsing through the live feeds. There was nothing to hide, just Evan quietly building towers of blocks while I stood at the sink rinsing dishes. No secrets, no tension. It dawned on me then. I didn't need the surveillance anymore. I unscrewed the one in the hallway, then removed the kitchen cam. Only the doorbell camera remained. Locks would be for keeping doors secure. Nothing else. One Saturday night, as we finished spaghetti at the kitchen table, Evan looked up and asked, "Why do we have cameras?" "They help us stay safe," I told him. After a moment, I added, "Locks protect the house, but being honest protects people." He thought about that, nodded slowly, then turned back to spinning his fork through a pile of noodles. Later that night, while tucking him in, my thoughts wandered back to a promise I'd made as a child myself. I would never let chaos rule the space I called home. I had kept that promise, but not in the way I'd once imagined. Peace hadn't come from rescuing a crumbling marriage. It came from facing what was real and choosing truth, for Evan's sake. The hidden cameras I hadn't told Tina about had uncovered betrayal, yes, but they weren't what made us secure. Real safety didn't come from surveillance or locked doors. It came from choosing to live honestly, even when honesty left things broken. And in that quiet, steady house, with Evan asleep just a room away, I finally saw it clearly. We were safe now. Truly, finally safe.